There are things in nature that look incredibly lazy, but the longer you observe them, the more you realize they're terrifyingly intelligent. Jake stood still at the edge of the water. Those two eyes were still staring at him. No blinking, no movement, just floating silently above the dark surface. Okay, nope. Jake stepped back half a pace. Every instinct in his body screamed that he should get back to the car immediately. But then, the alligator still didn't move. It stayed so motionless that Jake started wondering if it was even alive. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Still nothing. Jake laughed. Bro, this thing is literally doing nothing. He lifted his camera. Guys, I think this dude has the easiest life on Earth. But then a nearby boat driver laughed even harder. Son, that's exactly why they survive. Jake turned around. An older man in his 60s, sunburned skin, faded old hat, was pulling an airboat toward the shore. Most people think alligators are lazy, he said, until they realize lazy things don't survive millions of years. Jake immediately turned his camera back on. His creator instincts kicked in. Nah. Wait. Say that again. The old man smiled. Alligators aren't lazy. They just don't do useless things. That sentence made Jake go silent for a few seconds. The man's name was Walter. Born in Florida. Lived near the Everglades almost his entire life. And he started explaining things that sounded more unbelievable the longer Jake listened. American alligators can go months without eating. Not days. Months. Their heart rates can slow down dramatically to conserve energy. They don't waste calories on meaningless movement, even when they appear completely still underwater. They're observing everything. Walter pointed toward the surface. You see the part sticking out? Yeah. That's not even 10% of the animal. Jake froze slightly. Wait. What? Walter grinned. Most of it is underwater. Jake looked again. It was true. He could only see the eyes and part of the head. The rest was completely hidden beneath the murky water. And for the first time, Jake felt uneasy. Walter continued. Alligators don't hunt by running around everywhere. They don't chase everything. They wait. He picked up a branch and tossed it into the water. The alligator didn't react. See? It doesn't care. Then a few seconds later, a small bird landed near the water. And everything happened so fast, Jake shouted. Boom! The water exploded. The alligator launched upward like a spring-loaded machine. One bite. Done. The bird vanished. The water became still again, as if nothing had happened. Jake stood frozen. What the? Walter burst out laughing. Now you understand. The thing that shocked Jake the most wasn't the speed. It was the contrast. It could remain motionless for hours like a rotten log. But when the moment arrived, it became unbelievably fast. Walter said something Jake would remember for a very long time. Most people burn all their energy trying to look active. But predators, they save it for the right moment. Jake said nothing, because that sentence hit him too accurately. He remembered the past few months. Live streaming even when he had no ideas left. Uploading videos simply because he had to. Staying online constantly just so the algorithm wouldn't forget him. He was always moving, but not necessarily moving forward. Walter looked at Jake and smiled softly. You creators are funny. You think being busy means being important. Jake laughed automatically, but deep inside, he knew the man was right. Something most people don't know is that alligators actually don't have an incredibly high hunting success rate. which means they can't afford to waste energy on everything that moves. They choose carefully. And once they choose, they become extremely decisive. Jake sat down at the edge of the boat. For the first time in months, he wasn't thinking about views, not thinking about followers, not thinking about YouTube. He just watched the alligator. It was motionless again, as if that violent attack had never happened. And Jake suddenly found it strangely funny. His entire life was being controlled by flashing numbers on a phone screen, while this creature, which had survived for millions of years, succeeded by staying still most of the time. Walter looked at him and asked, "Kid, when was the last time you actually stopped?" Jake opened his mouth, then paused. He couldn't remember. Not for days, for years. He was always online, always checking something, always afraid someone else was moving faster than him. Walter nodded like he already knew the answer. Yeah. That's why your generation is exhausted. Jake laughed again. But this time, it wasn't a happy laugh. It was the kind of laugh people make when someone finally says the truth they've been avoiding for years. The sun sank lower. The Everglades turned deep orange. Insects echoed across the swamp. The atmosphere felt strange, yet peaceful. The alligator remained there, unhurried, trying to prove nothing, trying to impress no one. And for the first time in a very long time, Jake felt his mind slowing down. Not in a losing motivation kind of way, but in a quiet way. Then a thought suddenly appeared. If I slow down too, will I disappear? And that was the moment. The real fear finally revealed itself. If you think Jake will instantly change, then the next part will show you the hardest thing of all. It's not understanding the lesson. It's having the courage to live differently in a world that constantly makes you feel like you're never moving fast enough. Follow the channel, because part 3 is where Jake finally begins confronting himself.